The Drive on your local radio station. We are ESPN Blacksburg, and a good Thursday afternoon to all of you. My name is Paul Van Wagner. Nathan Brennan is disappeared. I have no idea where he is. That's okay, though, because we've got this.
I can't keep my hands to myself. No matter how hard I'm trying to.
Scott Nason.
I won't all to myself.
I'm so excited!
Scott Nason. Scott.
I love Scott.
Oh, yeah!
Song, baby.
Scott Nason.
Scott Nason.
Scott Nason. Scott Nason.
Absolutely, let's go. You like that? You like that?
Scott Nason joining us today. What's happening, my man?
Gentlemen, always a good time on your show and a pleasure to be on it because it's pretty much my weekend once I get on your show. Work a little bit Friday morning, but been getting these 3-day weekends, so certainly ready for it and ready to talk about, I'm assuming, the world of football, but I always hold that in a little bit because I know we could be talking about pretty much anything. Paul, thanks for having me on.
We could be talking about the toast I'm preparing for your wedding. I keep going back to that. I have support, Scott. The world wants to hear the toast.
Well, my lawyer will be in touch with yours very soon. As a matter of fact, we ironed out a little bit of an agreement here before you get here. So we'll be talking. Our lawyers will be talking soon.
You keep your Winnick away from me. All right. So, Scott, the big news out of the world of soccer today, anyway, is Christian Pulisic scores his first goal, I believe it is, in Premier League action. And this one was pretty, a coast-to-coast goal against Man City, but it doesn't hold up. Man City has tied this thing up with 60 in the 64th minute.
Yeah, Pulisic's actually had a very good week. He scored another one, Paul, in Chelsea's 2-1 victory over Aston Villa a few days ago. And this is a big match. I'd say more for Liverpool than anybody. Manchester City is a solid second. They're not going to catch Liverpool. Chelsea's in pretty good position in fourth, but certainly could use some points. And if this score holds, Liverpool will be the Premier League champion for the first time ever.
Wow!
All they need is a draw in this one between Man City and Chelsea. If Man City does win, then pretty much it's just going to go to Liverpool's next match. They get points through it. But Liverpool's going to win. It could be official here within the next 30 minutes.
So now this is interesting because, you know, we talk about this all the time in the world of soccer, that the regular season is the be-all, end-all, and that there's no real playoffs or anything like that. There are still matches to be played, and yet Liverpool already going to clinch this thing 31 games in. I believe they still have, Scott, 5 games left on their table?
They made, I believe it's 7.
Seven, okay.
If they do the full 38. But when you have a record, Paul, of 28 wins, 1 loss, and 2 draws,
yeah,
you're going to have a good chance of clinching early, and that's
True.
what Liverpool's done. They have the potential to have the best record ever in the Premier League, and it's just a team that never saw a bad moment in the season. I mean, obviously, when you played 31 games and you lost 1, you've had a solid year. But I think this isn't shocking. I think many people, including myself, thought Liverpool was the team to beat, but the margin, I think, was pretty shocking. I don't think anybody at the beginning of the year back in August said that, you know, Liverpool would be 23 points clear of Man City with 7 matches to play. And so certainly hats off to Liverpool. It's been a while. They have one of the best fan bases in all the world of soccer, in my opinion. You know, rich history with that club. Just because they've never won the Premier League doesn't mean they haven't won before. They've certainly won in the days before the Premier League many times, but this is the first. It hasn't happened in almost 30 years. So congratulations to Liverpool. If it's not today, it'll be this weekend that they're Premier League champs.
And I'm sure local hometown boy Ozzy Osbourne will be very happy about that. When you mentioned that they've won in the past, what was the Premier League before it was the Premier League, Scott?
It was basically just the top flight or the first division. Barclays got involved early on in changing the name along with some other sponsors just to make it more marketable, and hence the name Premier League. It was kind of the same thing the other leagues have done. Before it was just the top flight or the top division, and this just added a little more zest to basically to the name of it, Premier League, and it was as much a marketing thing as anything else.
I got you. On the other end of the Premier League, Norwich City looking to be relegated, probably going to happen. They're 6 points behind Aston Villa, AFC Bournemouth, and West Ham United also in the relegation area, as is, I believe it's Watford. So, Scott, 3 teams have to be relegated. We can pretty much safely assume Norwich City going to be one of those 3 teams. Who are the other 2?
Yeah, I think you're right, Paul. Norwich City's really going to have to go on a run here. They're 7 points clear of the drop zone, and I just don't see them putting together a win streak of any proportion, especially with the schedule they have. They play some of the top flight teams, so Norwich City's going to be relegated. Then it really comes down to 4 teams and 2 of those surviving. You have Aston Villa and Bournemouth, both in the drop zone right now with 27 points. West Ham United has 27 points, but they have a better goal differential, so they would not be relegated today. And Watford has 28. Now, Watford was a team that went 0-11 to start the season. They had a big loss today against Burnley, 1-0. So, you look at those 4 teams right now. I think probably of the 4, the team that's in the best shape is Aston Villa. They got a draw yesterday. They played very well against Chelsea and losing 2-1. Bournemouth, they're a team that started well, but has really struggled as of late. I think West Ham United is going to be okay. I mean, they haven't put out stellar performance. And then you have Watford, like I mentioned. So it's going to be those 4 teams, Paul. If I had to pick right now, I would say certainly Bournemouth is in big trouble. I think they're the one team that goes down. And then it's a crapshoot between Watford, West Ham, and Aston Villa. I guess if I had to say right now which team would go down, it would be Watford, just because Aston Villa seems to be playing a little better as of late. So lots to play for, and you can't count out a couple teams ahead of them, and Brighton, Hove Albion, and Southampton. They're a few points ahead of the drop zone, but, you get a 3-4 game losing streak, you're right there. So lots to play for on both sides of the table.
East Hampton not in the drop zone. They're going to be safe. Scott, let me ask you this. Okay, how bad is relegation? And what I mean by that is, I'm envisioning these players walking through the streets of Norwich City and the townsfolk out there just screaming at them, shame, shame, shame. Is it that bad? What is kind of the... what is the fallout, if you will, if you get relegated from the Premier League?
Well, certainly the number one fallout is financial. You lose, I don't know how many millions in TV revenues and many other things just to be part of the Premier League. So certainly the financial aspect is the biggest hit right off the bat. For a team like Norwich, they've been back and forth a few times. They've been relegated a couple times over the last 10 years and managed to get their way back up. Aston Villa, another one. So one of those teams gets relegated. It's not as shocking. We saw a few years ago Newcastle United get relegated, and that was a pretty shocking one because that's a team that's been up in the top flight or the Premier League for quite some time. And obviously getting out of the Premier League not only financially, but it's not the easiest to get back in because then you go in the Champions Division or the Championship Division, if you will. 24 teams in that one. You finish in the top 2, then you get automatically promoted to the Premier League next year. So right now, West Brom and Leeds United, now Leeds has not been in for quite some time, they would be the teams to advance. And then you have 3 through 6 who play a playoff, which is very exciting. So I think the financial aspect is the worst for these clubs. But, some teams do get, relegated, and a team like Hull City that was a couple years ago in the Premier League, well, they're in danger of being relegated out of Championship Division and then into the next division. So it's certainly hard to get back once you get kicked out, but it's not impossible. It's more the financial aspect, I think, that hurts the teams initially.
We always seem to talk about the same group of teams, right? It's you have the haves in Premier League soccer, the Chelseas, the Man United, the Liverpools, Man City, Leicester City. Well, maybe even not Leicester City so much. That's kind of been a recent thing. But and then you have kind of those middle teams, right? Like Tottenham Hotspur, Arsenal, Crystal Palace, those teams. Is there ever going to be a chance where we see Chelsea or Liverpool or Man U get relegated?
Highly unlikely, Paul. If you put it in financial terms, these top 5 or 6 teams, there's no salary cap, obviously, in the world of soccer. So, you get these rich oligarchs that own some of these teams, like in Chelsea's case, they can just keep throwing money at the problem. And, they're kind of, these teams are like the New York Yankees of Major League Baseball. They're not going to win every year, but they're really not in danger of getting relegated. So, there's been a couple times, I think, where a team has been maybe like 10th once the season is over, but almost every year, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Manchester United, Arsenal, Tottenham Hotspur, you can be assured those 6 teams will not be relegated anytime soon. That would be as much an unlikely story as Leicester City winning the Premier League a few years ago. Maybe not as dramatic, but certainly would be a total shock. And that really goes across Europe with these top-level squads. I mean, you're not going to see Real Madrid and Barcelona or Atletico Madrid get relegated. You're not going to see Juventus, AC Milan, and some of those teams in Italy relegated. So the haves are certainly in better shape than the have-nots, and many times that has to do with they can just spend as much money as they want and not even have to worry about it.
You mentioned Leicester City, and I want to touch on them real quick because that was a story a couple of years ago when they won the Premier League. 5,000 to 1 odds in order to win the Premier League, and they do it. Have they now reached because they're in 3rd right now, have they kind of reached that pinnacle or close to it where they now are not in any sort of danger to be relegated ever again, like a Chelsea or a Man U or a Liverpool?
I think they're on that just outside group of the top 6. And there's a couple teams I'd put in there. I'd certainly put Everton in there. I'd even put Newcastle United in that group. There's a small group of teams that, are chasing, but, not really in serious title contention. Well, you got to put Leicester City, obviously not this year, in title contention, but after they won their Premier League title a few years ago, they had a couple semi-decent seasons. I know they had a good Champions League run right after they won the Premier League, but they haven't done much in the Premier League. They finished in the top half, but this year looking to get right back in the Champions League, and certainly they're proof that Leicester City is not a one-hit wonder. They are here to stay, at least in the short term in the Premier League. So, yeah, I would put them just outside those top 6 teams, but certainly relegation doesn't look in the Wolves' future at any point.
Sure, absolutely. Scott, let's switch gears from football to football, and I want to ask you, news came out yesterday that Martha Ford is going to step down as leader of the Detroit Lions. Her daughter, Sheila Ford Hamp, will now assume the responsibilities of being the primary owner of the Detroit Lions football team. This is an interesting change. The Fords continue to own the Lions, but now we have new leadership at the top. What's your thought?
Well, I will say this for Martha Ford. She took over for her husband, William Clay Ford, who was the youngest grandson, of course, of Henry Ford of Ford Motor Company, for those that aren't familiar with the lineage there. And William Clay Ford, I wouldn't say was the best owner. I mean, he didn't seem to shake things up very much. And, we have a guy close to the scene there in Detroit on my show, Butch Davis, Butch on Sports, and he's close to the Lions, and Martha, I think, tried to shake things up as much as a 90-something woman could.
Right.
And so I give her some credit for trying to make some moves there, and let's see what happens with her daughter. Obviously, someone that has been involved in the organization. Right now with the Detroit Lions, it's a team that has not had success, and that's pretty much an understatement. As far as on the field, they have an administration in there that many people thought should go, and the ownership group thought, well, we're going to give them another year. And so we're going to see what kind of accountability is held with the Lions if there is, in fact, a season, and we have more of the same where we get a lot of excuses and a lot of, if we would have had this, if this guy wouldn't have been injured. Lions fans are tired of what ifs, because a lot of other teams have what ifs and they seem to figure it out. So we're going to see, I think, after this season, Paul, how the new ownership group, Sheila Ford Hamp and crew do. If, again, the mediocrity is rewarded with extensions and more of the same, then we're going to see more of the same with Ford owning the Lions, which we've seen for now 50-plus years. Not a lot of playoff victories.
Sell them to the Nason family. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely.
Scott Nason, where do our listeners get more great sports talk from you and the rest of your band of knuckleheads?
You can go to the website, thegamesportshow.com, or you can go to the podcast site, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. Plenty of other platforms you can find the show. We had just one new show this week, but always lots to talk about. If not, we find something to talk about. Because, Paul, you can just talk about anything, and we'll always find a way to do it.
Make it up as we go, Scott. That's how we roll around here. That's how we roll.
Absolutely. That's what I was looking for. You said it better than I did.
You take care. I will send you more snippets of my future wedding speech. Looking forward to it. August 1st can't come soon enough for me.
Well, if you do it this weekend, because the bachelorette party is this weekend, so it'd be a good time for me to proofread all your stuff.
Oh, all right. Excellent. Now that I know that, I'll have to find some people that are at the bachelorette party so I can include some snippets from that in there.
All right, moving on, Paul. Have a great weekend.
You too, Scott. Take care of yourself. Scott Nason, the Game Sports Show. We'll be right back. It's The Drive.
A big hello to our listeners in Shawsville. Thanks for tuning in to ESPN Blacksburg, 93.1, 97.1, and online at espnblacksburg.com.